This week on Football Playbook. An NFC East rivalry goes prime time as Deion and the Cowboys ride to Washington to battle the Redskins. Jimmy Johnson and the undefeated Dolphins fly to New York to face off against the 1-2 New York Jets. And in Green Bay, Brett Favre and the Packers host the high-flying Minnesota Vikings in an NFC Central showdown. All that and much more today on Football Playbook.
Red 45!
Welcome to Week 5 of Sportsline's Football Playbook, everybody. I'm Scott Kaplan, and with me, as always, the former coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, Sam Weitsch.
Let's go. We got a new guy.
Yeah, we got a new cast member this week, filling in for the marvelous one, former Miami Dolphin linebacker Kim Boekemper. Bo, you got big shoes to fill, but you got some big feet.
Well, I'll do the best I can, Scott.
No, you're going to be fine. You're going to be great. Now, guys, with the season already 1/4 of the way through, we're going to take a look at the league leaders in the key categories of rushing, passing, and receiving, starting with the NFC. Barry Sanders leading the way. No major shock there. Robert Smith and Garrison Hurst following him up. We move over to the passers. Brett Favre off to a great start, 10 touchdowns, and led his team to a comeback win last week against Carolina. And then we go to the receivers. Herman Moore and Johnny Morton, both of the Detroit Lions, right up there, 32 and 22 respectively. And then we go over to the AFC side of things. Terrell Davis, Natron Means, and Napoleon Kaufman. So the top 3 rushers in the AFC, all from the AFC West. Then we go to the passers. Peyton Manning, 992 yards and 3 touchdowns, but as you'll find out later, a lot of interceptions there for Peyton Manning. We go over now to the receivers, and Carl Pickens, 27 receptions for 2 touchdowns already this season for the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to get right into Week 5 because the 2-2 Dallas Cowboys, coming off a terrible loss at home last week to the Oakland Raiders, they visit the nation's capital to do battle with the winless Washington Redskins. But before we get into the analysis of the game, let's check on weather conditions in Washington with Jennifer Cole.
Jack Kent Cooke Stadium is the scene. The forecast provided by AccuWeather calls for partly sunny skies and a temperature of 70 degrees. Redskin fans, the last time Washington began a season 0-5 was 17 years ago. Check out our website, sportsline.com, for weather updates at game time.
There are no new injuries to report in this game, so we're going to move right into the matchup breakdown. And what you're going to look at is the last 5 meetings overall between these two division rivals. The numbers are relatively close, so what we've done for you is shown you that the Redskins, having won 3 of the last 5 games, have outscored the Cowboys by an average of 5 points, Kim.
Yeah, one of the things the Cowboys are going to have to do, their inconsistent running game is going to have to become more effective. I also question the capabilities of 13-year veteran Nate Newton, and also the free agent acquisition of Everett McIver just doesn't seem to be working up front. Also, Michael Irvin needs to come up with more big plays.
You know, Kim, the Redskins prove the old adage, it all starts up front. The offensive line has been inconsistent protecting. That leads to turnovers on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, those big money players aren't earning their salaries.
Kim, the Cowboys have been inconsistent all year. They blew out the Giants 2 weeks ago on Monday night. They go back home last week. They lose to Oakland. How about this week in the nation's capital?
You know, the one thing that the Cowboys can't do is they can't put Jason Garrett in difficult situations. They've got to keep him out of long yardage. 2nd and long, 3rd and long, those are killers for him. He's got to learn to take advantage of big matchups. Michael Irvin versus Chris Dishman. Dishman has been having trouble making big plays against the big receivers. Defensively, they've got to establish a pass rush. Kavika Pittman, Greg Ellis, they've been getting pressure outside. They need to get the tackles to get a push up the middle. That'll help them out.
Okay. We know that Troy's out. Emmett's a little bit nicked up. Michael hasn't made big plays, so give us your key players.
When you look at playmakers for the Dallas Cowboys, Deion Sanders comes to mind. This guy makes big plays on punt returns. He covers half the field defensively, comes up with big interceptions. Billy Davis is a guy that stepped in, become the number 2 receiver. 2 touchdowns. He's been doing a good job for him. Jason Garrett, as we said, he's just got to be consistent. He can't make the big mistake.
Okay, now we turn it over to the Redskins side of things. Sam, they got major issues in Washington, D.C. with this football team. They haven't won a game yet.
Well, the first one is their -11 in turnover ratio. By the way, that's terrible. Trent Green makes 2 or 3 mistakes by himself per ball game. They have to reduce his think load. Give the ball to Terry Allen more in the second half. On the defensive side of the ball, the Skins defense has given up 100-yard games 3 weeks in a row. Stubberfield and Wilkerson have to stay low on their first step so they can get penetration. And Ken Harvey has no sacks. He's their pass rushing leader. Got to scheme more to get him one-on-one.
Okay, now Michael Westbrook is a guy who's leading the NFC in terms of receptions and receiving yards, but they got to be able to get the ball to somebody else.
Well, you know, Westbrook, or Leslie Shepard, excuse me, has been calling for the ball, but when he gets the ball, there's no effect on the outcome of the ball game. Terry Allen, again, in the second half, has got to get him the ball, and Michael Irvin probably can't wait to get a hold of Chris Dishman, as Kim mentioned earlier.
Yeah, we're talking about Chris Dishman. He got smoked last week by the Denver Broncos, and Ray Buck, our Sportsline national columnist, is standing by in our newsroom. He's got his thoughts on the breaking of the dish. Let's go to Ray.
Okay, you can add cornerback Chris Dishman's name to the list. Big Daddy Wilkinson, Dana Stubblefield, pathetic Redskins defense. Yo, Dish, how was your week in the Burns Center after the Denver game? But don't expect Dishman to be benched against the Cowboys. Let's see, Dishman's 33, lost a step. Darrell Green's 38, playing just fine. Dishman, normal. Green, a complete freak of nature. Back to you, Scott.
We move right into our next game. The 3-0 Miami Dolphins going to the Meadowlands to take on the 1-2 Jets. Dolphins looking for the knockout punch in this one. But before we get into it, let's first take a look at weather conditions in the Meadowlands. Here's Jennifer Cole.
It'll be a perfect fall day for this crucial AFC East battle, with temperatures in the 60s. A note for Dolphin fans, Dan Marino loves to play the Jets. In 26 career games against New York, Marino has thrown 67 touchdown passes. Guys?
Now, both of these teams are coming off a bye, and that's good news for the Jets, who are hoping to get back linebacker James Ferrier, wide receiver Wayne Corbett, plus their quarterback Glenn Foley is still nursing a sore rib situation. All three of these guys are going to be game-time decisions for the Tuna. Kim, now you talk about the Dolphins' injury situation.
Well, wide receiver O.J. McDuffie went down with an ankle injury earlier in the week. He's missed some practice time. It's going to be a game-day decision.
Okay, all of these guys hoping to see action this weekend in a major rivalry game. We go to the matchup breakdown right now. Major statistical difference in this game is on the ground, and surprisingly, Kim, look at this. The Miami Dolphins almost doubling up the production on the ground of the New York Jets.
Yeah, they're going to continue to run the football. The Jets' defense has been giving up over 7 yards per play on first downs. The Dolphins will continue to try to take advantage of that.
Kim, for the Jets, Bill Parcells is playing. Guess who the starting quarterback will be? The quarterback shuffle never works in the long run. I think Bill Parcells will go with the current producer, Vinny Testaverde.
Okay, Kim, you know this Dolphin team. You played for them. You cover them. Such a surprise to hear about them running the football successfully and winning with the run.
Now, who would have believed that the Miami Dolphins run the football? But Jimmy has put his stamp on this team. They run the ball, and they run it in critical situations. If you look at their last game against Pittsburgh, Dan Marino only threw the ball 3 times in the second half. And they're playing Jimmy type of defense. Pass rush, they're ferocious. If you look at the rating of the opposing quarterbacks the Dolphins have played against, it's at 40. That's very low.
Yeah, not a good quarterback rating for opposing quarterbacks. Dan Marino, like you said, doesn't have to do quite as much as he used to, so that means Kareem Abdul-Jabbar becomes the main man.
Yeah, and they've got a great offensive line. There's zone blocking up front for him. He's able to find a cutback lane. He's getting some big yards. He's breaking off some big runs for him. Marino, consistent when he throws the ball. He's got time because of that running game. He's got 3 touchdowns this year, and they've really got to find in Jason Taylor. This guy's a great athlete. He's got 3 sacks this year. He causes a lot of problems.
Okay, Sam, the Jets, disappointing start to the season. They're at 1-2 right now. If ever there was an early season must-win, this is it.
Well, this is it. It's up to the offensive line. In the first 2 games, Curtis Martin totaled 116 yards. In the last game, 144 yards. They need to line Curtis Martin up deep, let him run that bend-back style of running. That's when he's at his best. And then on the defensive side of the ball, KISS. Keep it simple. Roll coverage to Otis Taylor, who's having a lot of problems, and keep rookie free safety Kevin Williams making simple reads. Then get ready for the Miami run.
Okay, now, Sam, a couple of years ago after his rookie season, Keyshawn Johnson exclaimed, "Just give me the damn ball." Well, someone must have been listening.
Well, and I think this guy's a little misunderstood. You know, he doesn't come across very well, but he wants to win, and he is really, when you talk to him, a pretty good guy. Curtis Martin, again, consistency is important for him. The no-name defensive line, the front 4 starters have no sacks. Only Brian Cox with 2 and Mo Lewis with 1 are getting to the sacks. They're going to have to scheme more to get those defensive linemen in.
Should be a great game coming up this weekend in the Meadowlands. There is lots more to come, so stay with us here on Football Playbook.
It's number 1 versus number 2. Manning and the Colts host Leaf and the Chargers. The preview next on Football Playbook.
Welcome back to Football Playbook, everyone. Along with Sam Weitsch, I'm Scott Kaplan, and filling in for our own version of the Marvelous One is former Miami Dolphin linebacker Kim Boekemper. Now, we're going to move into our next game because it's in Indianapolis. The Colts and the San Diego Chargers. Everybody's going to be watching this one as Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning square off for their first ever regular season meeting. Now, as far as injuries, Ryan Leaf, well, his ego's a little bit bruised, but he's going to get the start. And there is one roster note that we want to mention. Fullback Craig Hayward was signed this week to the Indianapolis Colts. He's there to help protect Peyton Manning. He may actually see time in this game. We move into the matchup breakdown right now, and the one number that really stands out is passing yards. The Indianapolis Colts, Kim, able to do it well, whereas the San Diego Chargers really struggling.
Yeah, they're going to live and die with Ryan Leaf. Head coach Kevin Gilbride has to figure out a way to settle his star quarterback down. His confidence is an all-time low right now.
And the Colts have lost 19 of the last 22 games, averaging less than 10 points on offense and giving up more than 30 points on defense. Some parts of this team are in place, but they have to learn the killer instinct.
Okay, Kim, you talk about the Chargers and Ryan Leaf's confidence being down. This is a team that's coming off 2 straight losses. I would imagine the entire team's confidence is down.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. They need to find a way to protect Ryan Leaf. And maybe the best way to do that is get the ball out of his hands and rely on the ground game a little bit. Defensively, it's a good opportunity to change a lot of sets, try to confuse Peyton Manning. Manning is having a tough time with the complexities of NFL defenses.
Okay, and we're all going to be watching Peyton Manning, but Natron Means, as you mentioned, is a guy that maybe he should give the ball to.
I think so. You bring this guy in, he comes over from Jacksonville. You've got to give him an opportunity to carry the ball. He's averaging 5.1 yards per carry. Ryan Leaf, he's committed 10 turnovers in the last 2 games. You need to give him an opportunity to settle down. And defensively, Junior Seau continues to lead the AFC's number 3 rated defense. He's getting a lot of help from, of all people, a safety, Rodney Harrison, who's got 3 sacks himself.
Okay, Sam, you know, the Colts have been in games this year. In fact, last week against New Orleans, they were in that game until Peyton had yet another turnover.
Well, Marshall Faulk's 2.9 yards per carry average has to be improved. I think they can do that by adding a 2 tight end offense a little bit. And slow down with Peyton Manning. You know, he teases you with those 300 passing yard games, but 12 turnovers have led directly to 60 points for the opposition. On defense, the Colts got their first 4 sacks of the year last week. They're on a roll. Go after Leaf. This guy is down. Kick him.
Sam, for the Colts to be successful, Peyton Manning's got to take better care of the football. Already 11 interceptions this season.
Yeah, he may be leading the AFC in total passing yards, but you combine that with turnovers and you don't win games. Quarterbacks are measured on how many games they win, not on how many yards they throw the ball. Now, Marshall Faulk can take the pressure off with the running game, but this week, a little tougher. The Chargers are better against the run than they are the pass. And that guy's a kicker. I'm not talking about a kicker.
Come on.
Well, you talk about a punter at least?
I'll talk about punters because they give you field position, but no kickers. That's your job.
Okay, well, Mike Vanderjagt is a good story. Coming down from the Canadian Football League, he takes over for Kerry Blanchard in Indianapolis, and as you can see, he's already off to a good start, 7 for 7 so far this season. Want to remind you to stay with us because later on in the show, we're going to make our selections in the pick segment. But coming up next, a very interesting interconference game. The surprising New Orleans Saints welcome Drew Bledsoe and the New England Patriots to the Superdome. Now, the Saints are going to be without starting linebacker Kevin Mitchell. He's gone with a dislocated shoulder. That's really going to hurt because he's got 28 tackles through the first 3 games. So let's go to the matchup breakdown right now. The numbers we're looking at, first of all, rushing the football, and this is in the last 5 games overall for these 2 teams. You can see that the Saints doing a much better job on the ground than the Patriots. Then we look at passing the football. This is where the scales get balanced because the Patriots more effective through the air. But Sam, I'll give you another number. The Saints are 4-1 in their last 5 games.
Yeah, and for the Patriots, it's a dangerous time to be coming in and playing a very physical Saints team. New England's coming off a bye week. They can't start slow on the road.
Sam, the one thing, you look at the Saints, they're winning games on smoke and mirrors. They had to get out of town this week to dodge Hurricane George. I don't know if they're going to have that success dodging the New England Patriots.
Okay, now the Patriots come to town. This is where they revisit the Super Bowl from a couple of years ago. For them to be successful, what do they have to do?
Well, the good news for the offense is Terry Glenn is taking the game much more seriously. Troy Brown is becoming a force on this football team. Robert Edwards is averaging over 4 yards a carry, and Drew Bledsoe hasn't thrown an interception in 98. On defense, Ty Law is the eraser. He'll lock on to Sean Dawkins. That'll allow the New England Patriots to put 8 men around the ball to stop Lamar Smith. The problem is if Ferry Colin's replacement, Chris Sullivan, has to play, he's a pass rusher, not a run stopper.
Okay, and you mentioned Drew Bledsoe. Pretty impressive to hear that he has not turned the ball over through the air yet this season. He's the obvious guy to look for. Who else?
Well, Robert Edwards is another obvious guy to look for. Not yet the long-term answer for Curtis Martin, but he's got to perform. Ben Coates is going to have to overcome some personal problems and play over his head for Bledsoe. And Ted Johnson, this is a blitzing defense. If they miss tackles, big gains, Ted Johnson, those made 30 of them.
Okay, Kim, now we go over to the New Orleans Saints. This is a team starting off at 3-0. Major surprise as they sit tied with the San Francisco 49ers atop the NFC West. What about this week at home?
It is a surprise, but Danny Abramowitz's offense is going to try to out-physical all his opponents. He's got a big offensive line. He's got a tight end, Cam Cleveland, that's his leading receiver. Defensively, they're going to try to force Bledsoe into mistakes. So far this season, they've been very successful. They're +6 in that important giveaway takeaway category.
Okay, and last week New Orleans comes up with a great win over Indianapolis, up in Indianapolis, when the Colts looked like they had that game wrapped up. What are the key players, in your opinion, for us to be looking for this week?
Well, the key players to watch are the running backs. Lamar Smith had a career-high 157 yards last week. He was impressive. He had big runs, 33 and 18 yards. If you can break off the big runs, you're going to win games. Danny Werfel, he's a guy that doesn't look pretty. He's not flamboyant. All he does is win football games. He did it in college. He's doing it now. And look at Tyrone Drakeford in the secondary. This is a guy that comes up with big interceptions. He had the one that set up the winning score last week. The Saints can rush the passer. They had 4 sacks last week.
Yeah, Kim, you mentioned it. Danny Werfel, maybe not aesthetically real pretty to watch, but apparently Coach Ditka really likes him, and Ray Buck is standing by in our Sportsline newsroom with more on this story.
Mike Ditka likes a quarterback? That's right. Danny Werfel, 96 Heisman Trophy winner, is doing with the Saints exactly what he did with the Florida Gators. Win. The last Heisman Trophy winning quarterback to take his NFL team into October undefeated, Jim Plunkett, did it twice. 7 others have tried and failed. Meanwhile, Danny Werfel, he just dares you to doubt him. Scott?
Much more to come on Football Playbook, so stay with us.
Can Minnesota sail into Green Bay and come away with a victory? Vikings-Packers preview coming up on Football Playbook.
Welcome back to Football Playbook. Now, we've already talked about division rivalry so far this week, and none is bigger than our next game. The Seahawks at 3-1. They visit Arrowhead Stadium. They're taking on the Chiefs. They're also 3-1. Now, this is a huge game, not just because of the AFC West rivalry, but because the Broncos at 4-0 are going to host Philadelphia. They're 0-4. So this game becomes huge because one of these two teams is going to stay on Denver's heels. Let's first find out about weather conditions in Kansas City, and here's Jennifer Cole.
Weather could be a problem Sunday night. The forecast provided by AccuWeather is calling for rain and a temperature in the 70s. This could spell trouble for the Seahawks. Ricky Watters rushed for only 59 yards in his only game against the Chiefs. Be sure to check the website, sportsline.com, for last-minute weather information.
Now, as far as injuries in this game, Andre Rison was inactive last week for the Chiefs. He's expected to be back in the lineup. For Seattle, linebacker and special team standout James Logan, he's gone for the next 8 to 12 weeks, fractured fibula, and that's really going to hurt an already depleted linebacking core in Seattle. We move to the matchup breakdown. Now, in the last 5 overall games between these two teams, take a look at the numbers here. The Chiefs on the ground, nearly 70 yards better than the Seattle Seahawks, and scoring in this series, you can see that the Chiefs substantially better, 21 points better, in fact, than the Seattle Seahawks. And I'll just tell you this one, Coach. Seattle has lost the last 5 meetings in this division series.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, they're for real. They proved they're for real last week against Pittsburgh on the road. They had 4 turnovers and still were right in that ball game at the very end. Ricky Watters and Warren Moon have completely changed the offense for the better.
Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs, you look at them, they've been able to construct an effective running game. They've also shown no drop-off with quarterback Rich Gannon. The Chiefs essentially have 2 starting quarterbacks.
Okay, and Sam, you talked about Seattle last week, a 13-10 loss to Pittsburgh. Now they go into a very hostile Arrowhead Stadium. What do they have to do to win?
Well, let Ricky Watters' emotional leadership spread. Warren Moon is a quiet leader, but Watters' attitude is a perfect balance for that. Moon's quick throws and quick drops lead to few sacks and even fewer hits on the quarterback. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Seahawks' pressure defense fills every gap. So not only is there a good pass rush, but it's an automatic run defense as well. This team is loaded with defensive talent, but they're hurting at the linebacker spot.
Okay, Sam, Joey Galloway off to a great start already this season, 19 yards per catch, 3 touchdowns, but they've got to get production from other receivers.
Well, they do, and McKnight and Pritchard combined don't have as many receptions as Joey Galloway. McKnight's speed helps loosen up that defense, but he just drops too many passes. Ricky Watters, emotion and production. Chad Brown, I think he's playing his best football.
Okay, Kim, the Chiefs last week, they escaped Philadelphia with a win. It was a much closer game than it should have been. What about this week against Seattle?
They're going to want to try to continue running the ball. They've got a gigantic offensive line, as big as the one in Jacksonville, so they're going to try to run it. They also spread the ball around. One thing they've done, they've thrown to 10 different receivers this year. That gives defensive coordinators a lot of headaches. Defensively, they've got to take away the deep threat. Joey Galloway has been a killer. They can't let him make the big play. This is an opportunistic Chief defense. They lead the NFL with 9 at the giveaway takeaway category. And if you remember, Seattle last week gave up 4 turnovers themselves.
Yeah, and coming into this season, there were a lot of question marks about the Chiefs' running game. A lot of those have been answered already.
Well, yes, they have. Donnell Bennett has filled in admirably for the loss of Marcus Allen. He left to go to broadcasting. Donnell Bennett has scored 4 touchdowns already this year. Tony Gonzalez coming out of the tight end position. He's got 16 catches. And Kimball Anders has been able to come out of the backfield as a favorite target. He's averaging 9 yards per reception. On the defensive side, you look at Derek Thomas. This guy is unbelievable. 18.5 career sacks versus Seattle. He's the guy, when you go to the line of scrimmage, you've got to locate, you got to find out where he's at.
Okay, and you can remember to stay with us all day long, because if you jump on the internet and you go to our website, www.sportsline.com, you're going to get all the news, information, and scores. But we move on to our next game, the game of the week. It's Monday Night Football. The black and blue division, the Green Bay Packers, the Minnesota Vikings. This is going to be a tremendous game. But first, let's find out about weather up in Lambeau Field. Here's Jennifer.
It could be messy in Green Bay, as rain is expected on Monday night. Temperature should be in the 60s. The all-time series between these two teams is dead even. Of the 73 games they've played, each team has won 36 times with one tie. Guys?
Sam, one injury of concern, it's on the Green Bay side.
Yeah, it's wide receiver Robert Brooks. Left the game last week with a sore back, but if he can't go, Derek Mays will do just fine. He had 3 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, made some unbelievable catches. Now, I want to mention one roster note to you for the Packers. They traded an undisclosed draft pick this past week to Buffalo for running back Derek Holmes. So again, Mike Holmgren looking to shore up his running game. We move into the matchup breakdown right now, and this is the last 5 meetings between these two division rivals, and there is no major statistical difference. Rushing yards, you can see right here, Green Bay's a little bit better, and passing yards, again, no major numerical difference here, but what I will tell you, Sam, is that Green Bay has won 3 of the last 5 meetings.
Yeah, and this week, Randall Cunningham can't start slow like he did a week ago against Chicago. This is a break-serve kind of a game. Beat Green Bay in Green Bay.
Well, Sam, the Packers, no strangers to slow starts. They fell behind 10-0 last week against Carolina when Brett Favre came out and threw a couple costly interceptions early in the game.
Okay, for the Minnesota Vikings to go to Lambeau Field, where they're going to be going crazy on Monday night and win on grass, what does Minnesota have to do?
Well, first thing, remember the Minnesota Vikings are playing with a backup quarterback, but the guy has a lot of talent around him. Robert Smith can catch and run. Randy Moss is going to make a lot of acrobatic catches to win ball games for him. On the defensive side of the ball, the defensive coaches said, we can't seem to stop the seam pass. Well, the way you stop the seam pass is you've got to reroute receivers. That means chucking them at the line of scrimmage. That'll happen this week.
Yeah, and last week, Eric Kramer scorched the defensive backfield for the Minnesota Vikings, 374 yards, 4 touchdowns. What are they going to do this week?
Well, you got to get pressure on him, and John Randall's the guy to do it. This is a guy that is built low to the ground, quick as a cat coming off the ball. Only 2.5 sacks so far this year. That number's going to go way up. Robert Smith, over 5 yards a carry. Loosen the chains with that guy. Let him carry the ball. And Randy Moss may be the 1998 steal of the draft thanks to Chris Carter's leadership.
Okay, Kim, Oktoberfest in Wisconsin. The Cheeseheads going berserk. They've got to maintain their perfect record. How do they do it?
Well, you know they're going to be able to throw the football. This is a team that can get the ball in the air, but they got to find a way to get their running game in order. Their offensive line has to help, and Raymond Harris, who's only averaging 3 yards a game, is going to have to pick it up. If not, that running game is going to hurt the Green Bay Packers at some time. Defensively, you'd love to blitz Cunningham. And Leroy Butler, you've got the best blitzing defensive back in the league. They've also got a quality tandem of pass rushers in Reggie White and Vonnie Holliday. You know what? Take the ropes off those guys and let them get upfield.
Okay, and you mentioned Brett Favre's slow start last week. The guy threw a couple of interceptions, yet he just keeps on slinging. He's the key for this team.
You got to love the confidence that this guy has. He throws interceptions. He doesn't care. He'll come back. He'll throw touchdowns. You can see 10 touchdowns already this year. He loves to throw the ball to his best friend, Mark Chmura. He's got 16 catches. And in the secondary, there's a nice story. Craig Newsome comes back from the knee injury last year. He's got 1 interception, and he's solidifying that secondary.
Division rivals, both teams unbeaten. Should be a great game in Lambeau on Monday night. You're going to want to stay tuned for what's next on Football Playbook.
It's the comeback story of the year, or so he hopes. Scott makes his picks next on Football Playbook.
Time now for our pick segment, but first let's take a look at the results from Week 4 and the season overall. Sam, you and I tying last week at 9-4, Marv coming in at 8-5, and then overall for the season, you and Marv, Sam, tied right there, and I don't know who's keeping track of these stats, but I'm a few games behind. Now, in our feature games this week, we all agree that Dallas will beat Washington, Miami will top the Jets, and we all like the Chiefs to hand Seattle their 2nd loss in a row, but the Patriots go to the Saints. Sam?
Saints at home.
I like the Patriots.
I also like the Patriots on the road. Chargers at the Colts, Kim?
I like the Chargers. Colts are horrible.
Colts are winning their first one.
I also like the Colts. And the Vikings at the Packers, Sam?
I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings on the road.
I like the Vikings, too.
I got to like the Packers at home. I want to thank Kim Boekemper for stepping in for Marv Levy this week. For Sam Weitsch, Jennifer Cole, Ray Buck, and the entire staff here at Football Playbook, this is Scott Kaplan wishing you a great football Sunday. We'll see you next week.